Welcome back. With the 2026 local government elections looming, political parties are setting their sights on KwaZulu-Natal. EFF leader Julius Malema has directed members in KwaZulu-Natal to support the MK party's motion of no confidence, targeting Premier Thami Ntuli. Malema's decision comes amid the MKP's latest attempt to remove Ntuli, who is from the IFP, through a motion of no confidence. The MKP has said it was bringing the motion because of poor governance. For more, we are joined by Professor Bheki Mngomezulu from the Nelson Mandela University. Prof, thank you so much for joining us this evening. What are the chances of this motion of no confidence going through?
Thank you very much, Masa, for having me, and good evening to your viewers. On paper, everything looks pretty clear. That Thami Ntuli will survive this vote of no confidence. But the more you look at it, the more complex it becomes. At face value, the ANC, the DA, and the IFP have already indicated that they are going to reject this motion. And they constitute 40% of the 80-member legislature in KwaZulu-Natal. On the other hand, you have the MK party, which has 37 seats, supported by the EFF, which has 2 seats. That gives them basically 1 seat less than that of the coalition. So that is 39 seats. Then you have the NFP, which is currently sitting on the fence. We don't know where it stands. The party says that Mbalishinga, who is the MEC for Social Development, must vote with the EFF and the MK party. But she doesn't seem to hold the same view. So we'll wait and see. Hypothetically, if Mbalishinga follows the mandate of her party and votes with the MK party and the EFF, then they will also have 40. So we'll have 40 supporting the motion and then have another 40 not supporting the motion. What you need here are politicians who are not trustworthy. You need just one of them from either side who is going to either vote with the opposition or decide to spoil the vote or abstain. In any eventuality, then it means that this vote could go either way. That's why I'm saying that on paper it looks simple, but in reality it's not as simple as it appears at face value.
And speaking about that fluidity as well, the ANC this week had its NGC, and we heard its Secretary General Fikile Mbalula speaking about the task team that was sent to KZN to try and basically recruit their support following last year's general elections and their dismal showing in that province. But he's admitted this week that that intervention has failed. With that being considered in mind, would that also play a role in how some people may vote from the ANC party in particular?
Masa, you're asking a very critical question. In fact, if this vote were to be done through a secret ballot, mark my word, Mr. Ntuli will be out of the position. Because there are members of the ANC who would vote with the MK party and the EFF, and then hypothetically speaking, and the NFP, assuming that it gives its 1 seat to the MK party. But then if you have an open ballot, then you have a problem, because then parties are individuals scared of losing their positions, which is something I wrote about a week ago, saying that politicians in KwaZulu-Natal should put the interests of the members of the province first. Unfortunately, that does not happen. All they are concerned with are blue lights. So in other words, there are people who would vote either for Ntuli to stay or for Ntuli to walk out, not necessarily because they are putting the interests of the people of KwaZulu-Natal first, but because primarily they are concerned about their own position. So then the situation then is that serious.
And speaking about the situation being that serious as well, Prof, for the residents of KZN as well, I mean, with something like this, they have no choice, obviously, but to go with whatever the outcome of this is. Is this dependent entirely, would you say, or largely on whether this is a secret vote or not? Because that will change the outcome.
I wouldn't say solely, but mainly. Mainly because remember that politicians are scared to refuse towing the line, as it were. So then ordinarily they would be happy to agree with their political party or to take the party mandate, even if they disagree with it. But then if you vote secretly, then of course anything is possible. So I would say not necessarily that this is the primary factor that would result on this motion going either way, but it is the main factor. If, for example, we were to have the election before the issue of Mkhanyakude was sorted out, it was clear that Mr. Ntuli will be out of the office because many in the ANC were not happy about certain things, but primarily they were not happy about the IFP taking Mkhanyakude out of their hands and then having the IFP ruling that municipality. Then I think we can give credit to the IFP on this one because the IFP had to put two and two together, and then they came to the conclusion that we have two options. Either we keep our blue lights in the legislature or we lose this municipality. So they decided, okay, fine, let's rather lose this municipality and keep our blue lights. Because if we keep Mkhanyakude district, then it means that we must bid these blue lights farewell. They opted for the latter. They said, fine, we can lose the municipality, ANC, take Mkhanyakude. We don't care what happened to the people of Mkhanyakude. All we are interested in are the blue lights. And then we're going to vote with the DA and, of course, that's the DA and the ANC. So it's clear right now that the DA is open. They are basically going to oppose the motion from the MK party. And it's also clear that the ANC will also oppose it. But as to whether all of them hold the same view, that is something we're not sure of, which is why then I'm saying if the vote were to be held secretly, anything is possible.
And while they have minimal power there, the EFF, it's interesting what its leader Julius Malema said this week in a press briefing about the outcome of the general elections. The fact is the MK party did win the most amount of votes in that province, and comparing it to Gauteng, for instance, where the ANC is in a government of provincial unity because they had the lion's share, even though they were under 50%. And why not apply the same philosophy then to KZN?
Must I never expect politicians to apply rules evenly. You and I can commit the same crime. One of us will be found guilty, the other one will be set free. We'll go scot-free, basically. And then you ask yourself the question, are they applying the law or does the law have eyes? My conclusion is the latter, that our law has eyes. We commit the same crime, but then the verdict is totally different. Ideally, we would expect them to do the same in KwaZulu-Natal as they did in Gauteng, but never expect that to happen. And we also saw with the ANC after the election, they focused on KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, saying that these provinces did not perform well, and they put together a provincial task team or provincial task teams to try and remedy the situation. I asked the question, what are you saying about the Western Cape, where the ANC performed even badly compared to Gauteng? There was nothing said until recently when they also then brought in the Western Cape under the provincial task team. So it's something that was an afterthought, but there was no systematic plan to apply the law evenly. Then lastly, you have seen this, of course, with the application of the step-aside resolution. We are found wanting on two issues. You and I have committed a crime, or at least were implicated in crime, and then both of us are formally charged. One of us will be sworn in as a member of parliament, the other one will be told to step aside because there is now a case pending. There is no evenness in the application of the law, so that is why then what is happening in Gauteng does not necessarily happen in the same way in KwaZulu-Natal. So expect this to happen going forward. But then mark my word, 2026 is coming. Voters are going to indicate where they stand on these issues. They are not in the legislature, but they are watching it with a keen interest, and then they will punish some of these politicians in one way or the other.
Yeah. Let's say this motion of no confidence, Prof, is successful for the MK party and they do manage to remove the Premier Thami Ntuli. Who do you think they would field to, as somebody from their party to take up that post? And more importantly, how stable would it be? Because we've seen somewhat of a revolving door when it comes to leadership positions in the MK party.
There is nothing certain when it comes to our politicians. Ideally, you would expect that if the motion were to pass and Mr. Ntuli were to be shown the door, then the Premier would come from the MK party. It's not a given. This is politics. You may be surprised that the motion wins, and then Thami Ntuli leaves office, and we expect the Premier to come from the MK party, and then suddenly the Premier comes from the EFF. This is politics. Because what politicians do, some of them, especially those who are smart, they don't think about the here and now, they think about the future. In this case, it is the MK party that put the motion, and the EFF is supporting them. So then maybe they may say that to try and appreciate what the EFF has done, let us give them the premiership for one reason or the other. And then the point we are making about the stability in the MK is a very critical one as well, because we have seen people being moved around, and then one would say that at the moment there is no stability. Then if you ask them, they will tell you that we are building the party, and then of course we have to understand the situation and then look at who would be best positioned to run a particular portfolio. So in this case, then don't be surprised. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, the MK passes, the motion passes, and then the MK wins basically, and then the premier comes from somewhere else and not necessarily from the MK party. But if they want to produce someone from within their ranks, then they can decide who they think is right. But at the moment, I don't have a sure candidate, I'll be honest with you.
Prof, you've given us much food for thought. Thank you so much for your time and your insights this evening. Really appreciate it. That was, of course, Professor Bheki Mngomezulu from the Nelson Mandela University.